I tell you though, one of the big surprises for me this year had been Mission Impossible. I genuinely expected that to clear up and be one of the big hits of the summer movie season, and it just never got off the ground. And to this day, I don't fully understand what the problem was.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it's also coming off the back of Top Gun, which I think probably inflated people's expectations a little bit, because Top Gun really was a unique occurrence.
It was two things of Top Gun Maverick and the previous Mission Impossible, Fallout being a really good movie that did really good numbers. So you think, well, everything's in its favor now, and somehow it just didn't pan out. I don't get it.
But it's not as good a film as Fallout. That's one of the major things. Fallout's a very tight script. It's a surprisingly good film, and Dead Reckoning Part 1 just felt more like a reversion to the mean for that franchise. So I've seen a lot of this before. What you've added doesn't really make sense or work. Also, it's only Part 1 of 2, and there's not enough in it to make me particularly care to remember where we are going to be in Part 2. If it had been a better film, it probably would have done better in terms of money. Shocking observation, but it just wasn't that good. It was a fairly average action flick.
Yeah, I think people are sick of Part 1 and Part 2 movies as well, quite frankly. I think people have really checked out for stuff like that for quite a while. But also, like, the Mission Impossible movies, generally speaking, that they always had legs, and they had a good sort of overseas, like domestic was okay, but it was always overseas that did really well. I think Japan did major numbers for Fallout, if I remember rightly. Mission Impossible Fallout, and this one, it just fell on its arse. Like, it just didn't. I think the meme of Mission Impossible overtook what Mission Impossible was at that point.
Yeah, and it undoes so much of the good work that makes Fallout an exceptional action film. Fallout establishes his relationships. It establishes that he has a particular person that he really likes and even loves, someone he can get over his old relationship for. And that film, it's a strong character film as well as a strong action film. And Dead Reckoning comes out, and lo and behold, none of that really is remembered. And then said character is just yeeted in a pretty unsatisfactory way. So it's not only that it doesn't do as much good work as Fallout did, but it also undoes some of the good work that Fallout did. And action films, if you're just an average action film, I don't know that they are particularly hard to make. They're certainly not. There aren't like a small number of them. They come out quite often. You need to really stand out in that genre to be remembered for anything other than just, that was a fun couple of hours, but I'm not going to, stick around for the franchise. And that's kind of what it meant. It reverted to the action movie mean of, not awful, not like really offensively bad, just kind of there. Some cool shots, some cool fight scenes, nothing else really to write home about.
See, I almost took the opposite view, or I thought this was how it was going to play out, that people would be more forgiving towards relatively generic action movies because they were so sick of superhero flicks. And it was almost like having just a standard action movie set here on planet Earth with normal people doing relatively believable things would be exactly what they would look for. And they would be fairly forgiving towards it. And apparently not.
So the interesting thing about Fallout, I think if you remember back to the marketing and how it was promoted on the lead up, we'd seen absolutely every single action set piece in that film before it was released. And I think that was, it's textbook, isn't it? Whereas the studio, clearly, they didn't have confidence in it, right? Because they were showing us everything possible. Absolutely everything. I think even in the interviews, they revealed that the villain was AI, for God's sake. So they'd revealed everything about the movie. And so they clearly had their fingers on the button, didn't think it was going to do that well. But also, like, you'd revealed everything. What was the point in going to see it at that point? Like, where was the reason to go to watch it as an average moviegoer? The average moviegoer isn't someone like us that sits around, and watches these things and still goes to watch the movie because, I guess, the YouTube gods have cursed us. We have to. The average moviegoer will go, well, I've seen this stunt 20 times in the last, 10 hours on TV. And then I've seen this one as well. Is there anything left?
Also, at times you've got cost of living crisis and you've got a choice. I'm going to go and see another Mission Impossible film, or like a couple of weeks later, there's Oppenheimer, Barbie, for which there's unprecedented marketing buzz. There's plenty of other things around which recommend themselves more. Word of mouth, I don't think really picked up for Mission Impossible either. But I do wonder whether or not that's because it actually falls closer into a superhero film type trap, which is it doesn't have really any kind of understandable villain. You know, once you've blown up the stakes to supercomputer mega AI is controlling absolutely everything, it can predict absolutely everything except where it can't do that. And we don't really understand there's no human face to that. They tried to give a couple of human faces to that villain. One of them sleeps in a weird coffin at some point for some reason. It's nowhere near it. It's not going to be as compelling as Henry Cavill's turn in Fallout, for example. You have an actual human villain serving actual human villains with understandable motives. And that automatically makes it easier to invest in because you understand why people are doing what they're doing. With the supercomputer AI thing, it's just... it's another universal stake. It just like all the superhero films have. We have to save the entire planet from the next mega death plague. I've seen a lot of that stuff at this point, and there's nothing really distinctive about that.